The blood-soaked sunset stretched across the Montana sky like a wound as Josephine Zeller clutched her torn dress closer to her trembling body, wondering if she'd ever find safety in this merciless land. The year was 1878, and the promise of a new life in the West had become a cruel joke at her expense. Josephine had arrived in Silver Creek just 3 weeks prior, a seamstress with dreams bigger than the cramped Philadelphia apartment she'd left behind. The town had seemed welcoming at first, a place where a woman with skill and determination might carve out a respectable living. That illusion shattered the moment Walter Reed, the banker's son, decided he was entitled to more than her tailoring services. She stumbled along the dusty road leading away from town, her cheeks still stinging from Reed's backhand when she'd refused his advances. Worse than the physical pain was the memory of the crowded saloon, how everyone had laughed when she'd cried out as if her humiliation was the evening's entertainment. "Miss, you all right there?" The voice came from behind, deep and steady as the earth beneath her feet. Josephine whirled around, ready to flee. A man sat atop a dappled gray horse, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. She could make out a strong jawline, several days' worth of stubble, and eyes that held no mockery. "I'm fine," she managed, though her voice betrayed her. The stranger dismounted in one fluid motion. He moved with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to hard living. Not tall, but solid as an oak. "You're bleeding," he observed, nodding toward her split lip. Josephine touched her mouth, surprised to find blood. "It's nothing. Don't look like nothing." He kept his distance, respectful. "Name's Liam Nathans. Got a place about 3 miles west. Could offer you clean water, at least. I don't need charity from strange men," Josephine replied, more harshly than intended. "I've had my fill of men's help today." Something like understanding passed across his weathered face. "Fair enough. But night's coming, and this road's no place for anyone after dark, especially a woman?" she finished bitterly. "Especially anyone who's hurt," he corrected, then added with unexpected gentleness, "and alone." A wolf howled in the distance, making Josephine's decision for her. "Just water," she conceded. "Then I'll be on my way." Liam offered her his horse, walking alongside as they headed west. The silence between them was neither comfortable nor uncomfortable, simply necessary. When they crested a hill, Josephine saw a modest cabin nestled against a stand of pines, smoke curling from the chimney. "It ain't much," Liam said, misreading her expression, "but it's peaceful." "Peace sounds lovely," Josephine whispered, more to herself than to him. The cabin was simple but clean. A large room with a stone fireplace, rough-hewn table, 2 chairs, and a curtained-off area she presumed held a bed. Liam busied himself at the pump, filling a basin with water. "Sit," he said, placing the basin and a clean cloth before her. He retreated to the fireplace, giving her space. As Josephine cleaned her face, she caught Liam watching her, not with the predatory gaze she'd grown to fear, but with something more complex, concern mingled with quiet anger. "Want to tell me who did that?" he asked finally. "What does it matter? Justice isn't exactly abundant for women in these parts." "Maybe not. But some things shouldn't stand unchallenged." Josephine laughed bitterly. "Walter Reed happens to be the son of the man who owns half this valley. I refused him, he didn't take kindly to it." "Reed." Liam's expression darkened. "Should have known." "You know him?" "Know of him. His kind think money buys the right to take what isn't offered." Josephine dabbed at her lip. "The worst part wasn't even what he did. It was everyone else. They all laughed. Like my pain was amusing." Liam's eyes met hers, something resolute settling in them. "They laughed at my pain," she said, her voice breaking. The cowboy's jaw tightened before he answered. "Then let's give them silence and strength." "What does that mean?" she asked. "Means sometimes the best answer to cruelty is dignity. And sometimes—" he paused, stoking the fire. "Sometimes it's making sure they never laugh at someone like that again." That night, Josephine slept in Liam's bed while he took the floor near the fire. She had protested, but he insisted with a stubbornness that suggested arguing was futile. Dawn broke with Josephine waking to the smell of coffee and bacon. Liam was already dressed, hat in hand. "Got business in town," he said. "You're welcome to stay here long as you need. I can't impose, ain't imposing if you're invited." He placed his hat on his head. "There's food. Rest. Figure out what you want to do next without pressure." Before she could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Josephine spent the day exploring the cabin and its surroundings. Liam lived simply but comfortably. His bookshelf surprised her, volumes of poetry, history, even philosophy. Not what she expected from a solitary rancher. Outside, she found a small vegetable garden, chickens, and a corral with 3 horses besides the dappled gray. As the sun began to set, worry gnawed at her. What business had taken Liam to town? The same town where Walter Reed would be strutting about, secure in his father's protection? She was contemplating heading to town herself when the sound of approaching hooves made her heart race. Relief flooded her when she recognized Liam's broad shoulders, though he rode slowly, as if tired. "You're back," she said, unable to hide her concern. He dismounted carefully. In the fading light, she saw his split knuckles, a darkening bruise on his cheekbone. "What did you do?" she demanded, following him inside. Liam shrugged off his coat. "Had a conversation with young Mr. Reed about his manners toward ladies." "You fought him," Josephine stated flatly, reaching for the water basin. "Let's just say he won't be sitting comfortable for a spell." Despite his injuries, there was a hint of satisfaction in Liam's voice. His friends weren't so eager to laugh this time. Josephine dipped the cloth in water, gently cleaning his knuckles. "You shouldn't have." His father was there too," Liam interrupted. "Funny thing about bullies. They often need an audience. Old man Reed watched his son get what was coming, and didn't lift a finger. Why would he stand by? Because I reminded him I know things about certain loans, certain arrangements with the railroad that wouldn't look right on paper." Liam winced as she touched a particularly raw spot. "Plus, he knows I don't make trouble unless provoked." Josephine's hand stilled. "You risked this for me? A stranger?" Liam's eyes, deep brown in the lamplight, held hers. "Some things are wrong no matter who they happen to." Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits. Both outsiders in their own way, both unwilling to bend to injustice. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. Town's gonna be talking. They'll know you're here. I can leave tomorrow. Head to Denver maybe." Liam shook his head. "Running lets them win. Besides, I talked to Mrs. Holloway at the general store. She needs help with sewing, especially with winter coming. Said she'd be glad to hire a skilled seamstress." Josephine sat back, stunned. "You arranged employment for me?" "Just opened a door. Up to you if you walk through it." The following weeks brought changes either could have anticipated. Josephine took the position with Mrs. Holloway, whose store became busier than ever once word spread of the new seamstress's skill. She rented a small room above the store, but found herself spending evenings at Liam's cabin, sharing meals and conversation. They learned each other's stories: how Liam had come west after the war, disillusioned and seeking peace; how Josephine had fled Philadelphia following her parents' deaths, determined to build a life on her own terms. They discovered shared passions for books and music, and a mutual distrust of those who wielded power carelessly. One crisp October evening, as they sat before his fire, Josephine asked the question that had lingered since that first night. "What did you mean? About giving them silence and strength?" Liam considered, watching the flames. "My grandmother was Cherokee. She taught me that sometimes the strongest response to hatred isn't more hatred. It's living well, standing tall, refusing to let others define you." "Is that why you came west? To stand tall?" "Partly. Saw too much death in the war. Wanted quiet." He looked at her. But silence doesn't always mean saying nothing. Sometimes it means choosing carefully when to speak, and with what purpose. And strength? Is knowing that what others think of you doesn't determine your worth. Josephine reached for his hand, her fingers tracing the now healed knuckles. Yet you fought for me. Some injustices need more immediate answers, he said with a half-smile. I ain't perfect at grandmother's philosophy. Their first kiss came naturally, a culmination rather than a surprise. His lips were gentle against hers, his calloused hands cupping her face as if she were something precious. When they broke apart, Josephine saw in his eyes not just desire, but something deeper, a recognition of her wholeness, her strength. I should go, she said reluctantly, aware of propriety. You should, he agreed, though his hands lingered on hers. The courtship that followed became the talk of Silver Creek. Josephine, now respected for her business acumen as much as her needlework, walked through town with her head high. Liam, always somewhat apart from town life, was seen more frequently, accompanying her to church or sharing Sunday dinners at the hotel restaurant. Walter Reed left town shortly after his confrontation with Liam, sent east to manage his father's investments, a development that brought quiet satisfaction to many who had suffered his arrogance. Old man Reed himself nodded respectfully when passing Josephine on the street, a tacit acknowledgement that the balance of power had shifted. Winter arrived with a vengeance that year. Heavy snow isolated the town for weeks at a time, and Josephine moved temporarily to Liam's cabin when traveling between town and her room became dangerous. They maintained separate sleeping arrangements, honoring conventions even as their hearts grew more entwined. The arrangement proved fortunate when influenza swept through Silver Creek in January. Liam's isolated cabin remained untouched by the sickness, while Josephine's skills were put to use sewing funeral shrouds for the less fortunate. I hate this, she confessed one night, hands raw from hours of work. Creating these last garments while knowing nothing I do brings them back. Liam, who had been delivering firewood to quarantine families, pulled her close. You're giving dignity to grief. That matters. Does it? When there's so much suffering? It's like we talked about, strength isn't always in grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small mercies. As winter yielded reluctantly to spring, their relationship deepened into something neither had expected to find. Liam, so long accustomed to solitude, found himself looking forward to Josephine's presence, the way she filled his cabin with conversation and laughter. Josephine, who had sworn never to depend on a man, discovered that partnership need not mean submission. The proposal came on a mild April evening as they walked along the creek that gave the town its name. Wildflowers had begun to carpet the meadows, and the setting sun turned the water to liquid gold. I've been thinking, Liam said, unusually hesitant. About the future. What about it? Josephine asked, though her heartbeat quickened. Been alone most of my life. Thought I preferred it that way. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Turns out I was wrong. Liam. Let me finish before I lose my nerve, he said with a nervous smile. You're the strongest person I know, Josephine. Not because you never hurt or fear, but because you keep standing anyway. I love you for that. For everything you are. He reached into his pocket, producing a simple gold band. Don't want to change you or own you. Just want to walk alongside you, if you'll have me. Tears blurred Josephine's vision as she looked at the ring, then at this man who had shown her what true respect felt like. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. Their wedding in May was small but joyful. Mrs. Holloway insisted on hosting at her home, and most of the town attended, including, surprisingly, Mr. Reed, who presented them with a deed to 20 acres adjoining Liam's property. A business investment, he claimed, though the gesture spoke of something more like atonement. Life as a married couple required adjustments. Josephine continued her work in town, expanding to a full dressmaking business, while Liam's small cattle operation grew with the additional land. They built a larger cabin that summer, with space for Josephine's sewing and room enough for the family they hoped to create. Their first major test came that autumn, when 3 men from Liam's past arrived in Silver Creek. Former soldiers who had served with him, they brought memories Liam had tried to leave behind of battles fought, moral lines crossed in the chaos of war. "They're saying things," Josephine told him one evening, her expression troubled. "About what happened at Sharpsburg. About you." Liam's face hardened. "What kind of things?" "That you left men behind. That you ran." She touched his arm. "I don't believe them. But they're drinking heavily, making threats." The old Liam might have confronted them immediately, fists first. Instead, he nodded slowly. "Reckon it's time for some truth-telling, then." The next day, he rode into town alone, despite Josephine's protests. He found the men at the saloon, already deep in their cups despite the early hour. "Nathan's!" The tallest one, Jenkins, called out. "Come to answer for your cowardice finally?" The saloon fell silent as Liam pulled up a chair, his movements deliberate. "Let's talk about Sharpsburg then." What followed wasn't a brawl but a reckoning, Liam calmly recounting how he refused an order to charge a hopeless position, instead leading his squad around to flank the enemy. How Jenkins and the others had followed the lieutenant into a slaughter, only to be rescued by Liam's unconventional tactics. "You called it cowardice," Liam finished. "I called it refusing to waste lives for a commander's glory. Still do." The confrontation ended not with violence but with a grudging reassessment. Jenkins and his companions left town the next day, but not before Jenkins approached Liam on the street. "Still think you were wrong," he said gruffly. "But I'm alive to think it, I suppose." "That's something," Liam answered. When Josephine heard what had happened, she embraced him fiercely. "That's what you meant, isn't it? Silence and strength. You didn't fight them, you faced them with truth." "Wasn't sure it would work," he admitted. "Easier to throw a punch sometimes. But this way, you changed something in them," she said. "Just like you did in me." The following years brought both joy and hardship. Their first child, a daughter named Eleanor after Josephine's mother, arrived during a blizzard in 1880, with only Liam to assist in the delivery. Their son Michael followed 18 months later, completing their family. Silver Creek grew with the railroad's expansion. Josephine's business flourished, eventually employing 3 assistants. Liam's ranch remained modest by choice, though his reputation for fair dealing and quality stock spread throughout the territory. They faced challenges: drought years that threatened the herd, economic downturns that affected Josephine's trade, the lingering prejudice against Liam's Cherokee heritage that occasionally surfaced when newcomers arrived. Through it all, they maintained the philosophy that had brought them together, meeting cruelty with dignity, injustice with principled resistance. One summer evening in 1885, as they sat on their porch watching their children chase fireflies, Josephine reflected on their journey. "Remember when you found me on that road?" she asked, leaning against his shoulder. "I was ready to leave, to give up on this place entirely." Liam's arm tightened around her. "Glad you didn't. I think about who I was then. So afraid, so angry at the world. You had reason to be. Yes, but I was letting them define me, the reeds of the world, the people who laughed." She turned to face him. "You showed me another way. You already had it in you," he said. "Just needed reminding." A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the children's laughter and the rhythmic creaking of the rocking chair. "What do you think they'll remember about us?" Josephine asked suddenly. "The children, I mean. When they're grown." Liam considered this, watching Eleanor showing her brother how to cup his hands to catch the glowing insects. "Hope they remember we stood for something. That we taught them the difference between true strength and just being powerful." "I think they will," Josephine said. "They're watching everything we do, how we face the world." As if hearing her words, Eleanor looked up, waving excitedly. "Mama! Papa! Look how many we caught!" They beckoned the children closer, examining the temporary captives in glass jars, praising their gentle handling of the fragile creatures. "Can we keep them?" Michael asked, his 5-year-old face earnest in the fading light. Best to let them go, Liam explained. They need to be free to light up the night. The children considered this, then nodded solemnly. Eleanor carefully removed the jar lids, and they watched as the fireflies ascended, pinpricks of gold against the deepening blue of evening. They're beautiful, Eleanor whispered. Yes, Josephine agreed, her eyes meeting Liam's over their children's heads. Freedom always is. Later that night, with the children asleep, Josephine and Liam lingered by the fire. She was working on a quilt, he whittling a toy horse for Michael's upcoming birthday. I received a letter from Philadelphia today, she said. My cousin James is considering coming west. Asked if there might be opportunities here. What did you tell him? That it's not easy. That the West demands everything and promises nothing. She smiled. But that if he's willing to work hard and stand tall, there's a place for him. Liam nodded approvingly. Honest. I like that. I also told him about us, she continued. How we found each other, built this life. Our great romance? Liam teased gently. Bet that made for exciting reading. I told him the truth. That love isn't always about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. She set aside her sewing. Sometimes it's about finding someone who sees your pain and doesn't look away. Who believes in your strength even when you forget it yourself. Liam placed his carving on the table, crossing to kneel beside her chair. You've been my strength too, you know. All these years. We've been each other's, Josephine corrected, running her fingers through his hair, now streaked with silver at the temples. That's the beauty of it. Outside, the Montana night spread vast and star-filled above their home. Inside, the fire cast golden light on the life they had built, the children's toys scattered despite evening cleanup, Josephine's sewing basket overflowing with current projects, Liam's books stacked beside his favorite chair. Evidence of a life not perfect but purposeful, created with intention and love. They laughed at my pain, Josephine had said that first night, wounded and afraid. Then let's give them silence and strength, Liam had answered. Neither could have known then how those words would shape their years together, how they would face adversity not with bitterness but resolve, how they would build a family rooted in respect and courage, how their example would slowly change the very community that had once been hostile ground. As Josephine looked at Liam in the firelight, she felt the familiar surge of gratitude for that terrible day that had led her to this extraordinary life, not because suffering was necessary, but because in the darkest moment, she had found the hand reaching out to help her rise. I love you, she said simply. And I you, he replied, the words carrying the weight of all they had weathered together. Always. In the quiet of their home, with tomorrow's challenges still unwritten, that promise was enough, the silent strength they had found in each other continuing to light their way forward.